What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bring you another album review. And this one, yeah, you may or may not have guessed that this was going to be coming on my channel, because a lot of people are talking about this album, but I feel like I should express my thoughts on it. But yeah, I'm going to be reviewing the new album from the band Sleep Token, entitled Take Me Back to Eden. This is released under Spinefarm Records. Now, you may or may not, if you've been following my channel for the past 2 years or so, will know that Sleep Token didn't exactly start in a positive light for me when I first checked them out. And that was on their debut album that came out in 2019 called Sundowning. Now, there was a lot of hype about this band called Sleep Token at the time. Between like 2019 and 2020, a lot of people were talking about this mystery band, wear a mask, no one knows their identity, and they've released this incredible debut album, so on and so forth. So I decided to jump on that hype train, shall we say, and check out what all the fuss was about on this album, Sundowning. And I'm not gonna lie, and I said this in my top albums for 2021, that I didn't exactly get the hype behind Sleep Token on this debut album at first, because I don't know why, but it just wasn't really my feel. It wasn't my thing at the time. I just didn't get what all the hype was about. Yeah, there was a little bit of heavy riffage here and there, and the feels as real moments and the electronic stuff was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but a lot of the electronic sort of metalcore alternative stuff that I was listening to was a lot better, in my personal opinion. And it didn't really click, the band didn't really click with me at first with that album, so I just left it. I came back to it like twice, and I still felt the same sort of way, so I just thought I'd leave it. And then they released a single called Alkali, which would lead up to their second album in 2021, entitled This Place Will Become Your Tomb. Now, this album to me was a vast improvement, and Alkali I kept on coming back to and found myself really enjoying this album. This song. And then when the album dropped, I fell in love with this album. Like, from beginning to end, it is an absolute masterpiece of this sort of like progressive metalcore sort of progressive metalcore meets alternative rock, electronic sort of things. Maybe a bit of R&B thrown in there for good measure sort of thing. And I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed it. I thought the songs were a lot more cohesive and a lot more enjoyable and set themselves apart one way or another. But after that, I decided to go back to Sundowning, and it still didn't click with us. And then when I was at Bloodstock, they were headlining, I believe it was the Friday, if my memory serves, and they were absolutely phenomenal. They played songs from both albums, and I really, really enjoyed the performance. And some of the songs that I remember hearing at Bloodstock and really enjoying were on Sundowning. So I went back to the album, and it started to click with me a lot more, which, you know, it happens, you know, it was a late bloomer, should we just say, and I do listen to it, not as much as This Place Will Become Your Tomb, but I do listen to it and I still get a little bit of enjoyment out of it, so what can you do? Anyway, but after This Place Will Become Your Tomb, I did want some more material, so obviously I was going to have to wait. And then, throughout the course, pretty much since the start of 2023, we got a couple of singles over a period of time, from Chokehold to Summoning, Granite, Aqua Regaia, and a couple of others that were coming out quite consistently, and I was like, okay, they've got to be preparing for an album. Like, there's no way this is for an album. These are not just odd singles that are thrown out. This is leading up to an album. And then we finally get the announcement of Take Me Back to Eden, and it's been unleashed. I've listened to it quite a few times over, I think it's been out like a month or so I'm here to review it. So yeah, it's 12 tracks and runs around 64 minutes in length. And I'm not going to lie, this has become one of the most repetitive listened to albums I've listened to all year. Like, this album to me is like a perfect continuation and a perfect growth of Sleep Token as a band, and conquering a sound that other bands are trying to do. And this isn't like a shot, this is just my personal opinion. Sleep Token are kind of conquering the sound, the Bring Me sound, better than Bring Me the Horizon, if you ask me. Like, that kind of like metalcore meets alternative rock meets electronic sort of R&B sort of feels. Sleep Token are doing it way better, in my opinion, and bridging that perfect gap between mainstream pop music and heavy metal, and more to the point, metalcore, and making this really unique sound. And I can now understand, and it clicked, why this band is becoming so big. Not because of the mysticalness, but because their songs are just so captivating and easy to like find yourself singing along to. Like, all the singles that they dropped, from Chokehold, Summoning, Granite, and Aqua Regalia, you were singing those songs left, right, and centre. Like, they're just so memorable. They know how to write a memorable hook and just keep it very interesting, the music. Like, really keep it interesting. Like, especially on the song, like, Chokehold's a pretty heavy song and catchy in general, but the Summoning has this sort of really weird sort of abstract sort of feel, and even the whole album itself feels very abstract with its all like creative freedom sort of vibe going through it, because 1 minute it's like this really chill like R&B, like really catchy, you know, soft sort of feel to it, and then it'll come in with these like heavier sort of moments in there that'll really catch you off guard and remind you that they are still a heavy metalcore, whatever band that can still chunk out like a heavy song like Summoning, or I believe it's a song Vor, which is like more of a screamy sort of screamo metalcore sort of song. You could say like it's more heavy orientated, but the whole majority of this is all about feels as real, and that sort of like tug at your heartstrings sort of feel. And throughout this entire album, you will be singing along and feel a bit of sorrow and a bit of down moment, you could see it, where things just seem very overwhelming and emotional when you listen to it. But at the same time, it is there to strike a nerve, make your hair stand on end, and it really... There's not been a lot of albums when it comes to the feels as real where a song or a lyric or a moment has made my hairs stand on end, whereas this album definitely has that encapsulated throughout the entire record. In particular on the song Are You Really Okay, which is probably my highlight track of this album, because that is a ballady sort of really soft song that's really filled with a lot of emotion, a lot of depth, and feels as real moments. That's just like, I remember getting very emotional listening to that song, and there's not a lot of songs that can get me emotional. I mean, the only ones that I can think off the top of my head is The Other Side by Malevolence and Always by Killswitch Engage, for example. This one kind of fits into... it's more of an acoustic song at the same time, but Upon a Burning Body, My Distorted Reflection. It kind of has that sort of emotional feel to it that's like, holy shit, like it's unnerving to hear, but it's still catchy and memorable. And yeah, DYWTYLM, do you want to... I can't remember off the top of my head. I should have written this down. But yeah, that song as well is another emotional filled song as well. And the title track itself, Take Me Back to Eden, is an absolutely remarkable masterpiece. And it's the... I believe it is, yeah, it's the longest track on this album, clocking in at 8 minutes 20. It is an absolute masterpiece. Like, from the whole songwriting to the overall heavier aspects thrown in there, to the electronics, to the blissful voice. Like, the voice itself of, I believe it's The Vessel, I think his name is, yeah, his voice is fucking incredible. Like, his power, but also the emotion that he delivers kind of puts me in mind, as I know this might seem a bit surprising, but it kind of puts us in mind a little bit of Post-Malone in a way. Like, this is like a reference to what Post-Malone would sound like if he was wanting to add more metal elements to it. This is what it would sound like, and it really works for them, because there is not another band that sounds like Sleep Token. This album is a perfect representation, in my opinion. Like, there may be some albums that have come, or artists that have come close to sound like This Place Will Become Your Tomb, or even Sundowning. But to me, anyway, Take Me Back to Eden is like the epitome of what a band can sound like, especially if they want to sound original and stand out from the crowd. Sleep Token did that with this album. And the overall production is very crisp and very well orchestrated, but also like every instrumentation, from like the electronics to the piano to the overall drums and electronic drum work that's on there. Everything is where it needs to be and sounds so coherent and blissful. It sounds extremely professional, if you ask me. Like, it is up there when it comes to production, in my personal opinion, for 2023, as this is like crystal clear production. But then when the heavier parts come in, the guitar just has this real grit and dirt behind it, especially on the song the Summoning and Chokehold. Like, those bows, the whole thal sort of tone and feel like you would get with like Viljarda and Humanity's Last Breath, for example. It just hits in that heavy sweet spot where there's a lot of distinct feel and grit behind the guitar. It's really fucking low tuned, but the bows and the overall mix of it just lets everything cut through with a sharp knife, and it still sounds pretty thick behind it as well, but it just cuts like a fine knife. And it's a really interesting contrast to get that really sharp balance between like really chunky and thick, but also sharp and a lot of attack going for it. And that definitely stands out on this record, if you ask me. And but I think Sleep Token have crafted an absolute masterpiece. As I said, I can get now why they are becoming an absolute powerhouse and also a flagship band in not just the metal but the alternative community, because there is a lot of people, from metalheads to guitar metalheads, who listen to, you know, the likes of Dark Throne or Cannibal Corpse or Old School Carcass and stuff like that, who are really enjoying a bit of Sleep Token. And then you've got people from the other side of the spectrum who are listening to like Katy Perry, you know, Take That, or The Weeknd, for example, or even Post Malone, for example, that are moving and checking out Sleep Token, hearing Sleep Token and going, okay, I can get behind this, I can really enjoy this sort of sound. And it's really bridging that gap, because Bring Me the Horizon are doing it very well, but I feel like Sleep Token is overtook them and gone, no, this is how you bridge the gap between a metalhead and let's say a normie sort of thing, you know, like someone who listens to a lot of pop music, who wants to get into some heavy, you know, sort of bands. Sleep Token, I'd say, is that flagship band, and this album is ahead of the charge in bringing a new breed of metalheads and alternative people into this world and being the introduction band that they are. I feel like they have hit a sweet spot with this album, and the more I listen to it, the more captivated I get and just feel like they have hit something special with this record. And personally, I absolutely love it. I think it's a remarkable sounding album, and I can't recommend it enough. I think it's an absolute masterpiece, and guess what? It's going to conquer this year and make Sleep Token conquer the world. And it's also probably going to conquer my top albums list, because I'm going to give this album a solid 10 out of 10. It's up there with the albums that I've talked about, Viscera and Cattle Decapitation of Sulphur and a couple of others that I haven't talked about yet, that this album is up there, and I give it a 10 out of 10. It's fucking incredible. Everything that I love about the alternative music genres, anything you can think of, this is just a perfect representation of it, and you just need to check it out. Even if you're not a massive fan, I feel like there is going to be some people who aren't like into this sort of alternative, like electronic R&B sort of feel songs, and I get that, that's fair enough, but there is some heavier songs on here that you might enjoy, like Chokehold Summoning or Vor, for example, or even Ascensionism, which is another incredible song. Make sure you check, I'll leave some links down below of where you can check out a couple of tracks, and also Are You Really Okay is part of my Super Metal Riffs for Days playlist, which you'll find down below. Make sure you follow it. Make sure to subscribe because more videos are on the way, but make sure you check out Sleep Token's new album, Take Me Back to Eden, and I'll see you until the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.